This is Gemara Bava Basra, Daf Kuf Samach Tes, and we're holding in the bottom of Kuf Samach Chesam and Beis as we close in on this incredible Masechta. We'd like to dedicate today's shir as an incredible Zchus Rafua Shlema for Tinaik ben Miriam Ahuva B'siyata D'Shemaya. The Koyach HaTeira Talmud Teira B'Rabbaim should continue bringing the ultimate Yeshuais and Rafua Shlema B'Karif. We're picking it up in the bottom of Kuf Samach Chesam and Beis. We are 7 lines in the bottom. The first word on the line is Aleph Beis Ba'alma Kamina. Tanu Rabbanan continues the Gemara with another case of a lost document. Harishaba, someone comes to Bezdin V'amar Avad Shtar Chayvi. He comes to Bezdin and he says, I lost my Shtar Chayv. Even if there are edim that are there that say we wrote the shtar, chasamnu, we signed the shtar, v'nasanenu lai, and we gave him the shtar. So seemingly one would think we have a pure eidos on the story. Still, says the Gemara, 3 lines at the bottom, ein kaisin layis shtar. We do not write a new shtar, a replacement shtar for him. Why? The simple reason, of course, says the Rashbam, because we have to be worried that maybe he is hiding the other shtar and he's going to go and collect shalaikadin. Says the Gemara, when is this case? Bishtari halva. This is referring to if the document which is claimed to be lost is a shtar halva, is a document of a loan. However, aval shtare mekach umemkar, it's a document of buying and selling. Then, if there is such eidos kaisvin, we would indeed write a replacement shtar. However, chutz min achrayis shebai, we would not write achrayis meaning you could collect from the chasim shubadim, that we would not write into the replacement shtar, and as much as we have edim testifying that the original shtar was indeed to this guy, and we will write a replacement shtar. However, we do not write achrayis into the replacement shtar. We turn over to Kuf Samach Tesam and Aleph. It continues the Gemara. That's the shita of the Tanakama. Rashba Goimer Av Shtari Mekach Umemkar Ein Kaisvin. We do not even write Shtari Mekach Umemkar because, says the Rashbam in the top 2 lines, and therefore, what are we worried about? In as much as we have eidos testifying they wrote and they gave him the shtar that there was a sale, maybe the purchaser returned the document to the seller as shtar, and they reverted on the sale. And if we write a new document, it could potentially allow him to collect illegally. It says the Gemara of Achein Hayer of Shem Gamliel Aimer. And similarly, Rashbag would say, Hanoisin matana lachaveiroi v'hechzer loyis ashtar chazra matanasai. And similarly, and this is of course the impetus and the concern that Rav Shimon Gamliel is worried about, that if the shtar is returned, the matana goes back. Whereas the Chachamim Mimrim, no, matana like kayemes, it does not go back, and that's why the Chachamim were not concerned for such a detail. And the Rashbam in the second hour line points out, unless you go back and you sell it to him, or you make a new kinyan, or you write a new shtar. But just by merely returning the original shtar, say the Chachamim, would not be enough to revert the sale. And that is why the Chachamim are not concerned with rewriting such a shtar mech. Continues the Gemara. Let's go a drop deeper into the sheet of the Chachamim in the Tanakama. Says the Gemara, says the Tanakama, we write a replacement shtar except for the achrayis. Says the Gemara, 6 lines down my time, as we saw yesterday. Because you do not write 2 shtaros on a single field. Why? Because Dil Ma'azal Bal Chayv Tarif Lei. Because a Bal Chayv of the seller might come Tarif Lei Lahai and repossess this field from the buyer as payment of the debt. I sell you a field, but then I owe someone else money. That person comes to collect. If I don't have any cash, he goes to my lekuchen. So he goes to you, the buyer, and he collects the field. And then what's going to happen? Va'azal hai, the buyer, you are going to go uma pechad v'tarif lekuchais, and you're going to go pull out one of the shtaris and use it to collect from the next level of kuchais. If the next week I sold a different field or the previous week, then you'll go collect from those lekuchais. And then you're going to tell to the Baal Chayiv, Shofli de'ekim ba. Leave me alone. Why? Because I want to reestablish my bailos, my ownership on this field. And then you could come back and collect it from me again. And when he does so, then remember there's 2 shtaros. Because remember, he's coming at the Bezdin, claiming the shtar is lost. He has Eidim on the story and they're rewriting the shtar. So after it's collected from the next level, he holds onto the field. Now he comes back. What happens? He pulls out the other shtar. And then he goes and he collects again. So what's going to happen is the buyer is going to be able to collect 2 times. Normally, again, I sell you a field. If that field is collected, you have 1 shtar. So you have 1 shtar, so you could go and you could collect on the Nechasim Mishubadim. You could go and you could collect because it was a sale with a chrayis. It was a guaranteed sale. And therefore the buyer is allowed to go and collect from other purchasers. But if we write you a second shtar, if the reality is that you had a first shtar, which you just were hiding, now you'll have 2 shtaros and you'll be able to collect 2 different times. That's the reason why he says the Gemara, in as much as we'll rewrite the shtar, say the Chachamim, however, not the achrayis inside of it. Asks the Gemara, 1 second, we're smack in the middle of the Amid. Kov Samach Tes Amid Aleph, first word on the line is V'kivan. Asks the Gemara, V'kivan de Karani Lishtara de Malve. But once the Bezdin ripped up the shtar of the Malve, because again, when the first guy, when the Lekuchem, when the buyer came to repossess a field, they rip up the shtar of the Malve. What is going to use a second time? Asks the Gemara. The original document is ripped up, so we can't use it again. And maybe you're going to suggest to like Karana. Maybe you're going to suggest that the case you're referring to where the Bezdin did not rip up the shtar, but it can't be. Rav Nachman, it's called Kol Tirfu to Lokasa Be Karane L'Shtari Demav Lav Tirfu. Any time that they didn't rip up the document, it's not going to be a good collection. Rav Nachman continues, and any adrachta is a shtar. The Bezdin writes when someone repossesses a land. If they didn't write that we ripped up the original shtar, it's not a good adrachta. Chol shuma, and any evaluation to like Siv Bey, which is not rein karani ledrachta, lav shumo. So says the Gemara, we see that the original document has to be ripped up. So asks the Gemara, what is the problem with writing a chrayis into the new shtar? So the Gemara is bothered that we see that the way that one collects is not very primitive like we originally thought. I show up to Bezdin with my shtar and Bezdin allows me to collect. We see that there's a very precise procedure in which you have to originally show your shtar halva, that the person owed you money. And then Bezdin rips it up and writes the shtar tirfa, the collection document. And then they write the adrachta, the repossession warrant. And then they write the shuma, the evaluation. And each stage, Bezdin rips up the previous document. So the Gemara is asking, how can we ever run into a problem? So answers the Gemara, I'll tell you what, and meaning even if you were to write a second shtar that said that this field was bought, you will never be able to collect a second time because of the whole process ensures that you can never collect again. So answers the Gemara, 10 lines to the bottom. The first one line is Loitzricha Tikasi Mikoyach Avasa. The issue could become if someone comes to repossess land with the koyach of the father, saying that the seller stole the land from his father. In such a case, we would have to be concerned that he'd be able to collect 2 times, because if he has 2 shtarais that state that he's owed this money, he would indeed be able to collect because the process is not the same, and therefore that's the concern. Why are we worried about such a elaborate, such a lengthy issue as we detailed a few moments ago? That leave me in the field, I'll live there, I'll have a chazaka on the field. Asks the Gemara, typically, they came with an akat trei shtari. But why are we not concerned? Very simply. He has 2 shtaris, tarif, v'hadar, tarif. He'll collect once and he'll collect again, like we originally explained. Why do we have to come along? You're going to collect and you're going to live there, then you're going to go back. Why is that necessary? Answers the Gemara, dinim. The answer is because if you were just going to collect once and collect twice, there would be multiple balei dinim all at once, and then they're going to realize what's going on. So the only way you could potentially collect 2 times the same shtar is if you collect once, you live in the field, a few years later you go and you collect again. Asks the Gemara, okay, so we're concluding that this is the reason why, according to the Tanakama, that if the guy comes and claims he lost his shtar mekach, but he has the appropriate edim, etc., we will rewrite the shtar without the achrayis. Ask the Gemara of Lechtav Leilai Shtar Malya. Why don't we just write a good document with achrayis? V'lechtav Tavra la moicher, and we should write a receipt for the moicher that says Kol Shtarei di Yipkon al Ara da Psulin, that any other shtar that is procured, that is brought out in this field, is possible. Lavar, except min di Yipok bizmana da, except if there's such and such a date, the date of the new document, meaning ensure that there could be no other document. What's the big deal? Answers the Gemara, and this comes from a very fundamental din that we have machlekes. Do we rely upon a shiver? Says the Gemara, no. You look at the Rashbam at the very bottom, he explains it's machlekes tanayim. By every halva, mandamar inkais lishmar shayvray min achvarim. Are we worried that he's going to have to now forever hold on to his document showing that he paid? And based on that, we have a machlek as whether we write a shayver and whether we ensure, or rather we require, I should say, that the malva has to always hold on to his shayver's receipt that he paid. What about the fact that it might get lost, etc.? We turn over to Kufza Machtasim and Beis and says the Gemara, Amar Le Ba'alma Kaisid Shaver. No, maybe really we would normally yes write a shaver, but over here, Bachan Time of the Dama Azal Bachayv Tarav Minei, to Lekeh Vazliu Tarav Lekuchais, the Shaver Gabriel Lekuchais Leka. Says the Gemara, maybe the shaver would not even help. And the reason is the Lekuchais don't have a shaver, and therefore writing a shaver to the Malveh would not necessarily help anything. And therefore, this is not necessarily a raya to the shita of ein kaisvin shaver. Says Marba, wait. So if saif lekuchais lav amare da'ara hadre. Says the Gemara, the lekuchais do not go back to the owner of the land. The seller is going to come back, and he's going to be the one that wants to get reimbursed. So asks the Gemara, and then they'll pull out the shaver. So why are we still concerned? Answers the Gemara, 2 answers. Number 1, the buyer is going to go and in the interim eat peiros from the field, and that's a concern. We have to be worried about a case that he's not going to go back to the seller to get reimbursed, and therefore the shaver will not help us. Ask the Gemara, but if this is true, if this is true that a shaver does not help, then why by a shtar halva Are we, yes, reliant upon such? Says the Gemara, Hasam de Zuze Masik. Over there, the lender is claiming money. Amri, the buyers will say, Paise Balchai Vizuzi. He appeased him with money. However, Acha de Aramasik. But in our case, what are we talking about selling land? Mediyada will know, Demand Masik Arab Vizuzi Loi Mapis. Someone who buys land is not going to be appeased with money, and therefore there is no concern in our case. Says the Gemara, okay, Amar Mar. Now let's go a little bit deeper into the aforementioned Braisa. The same exact part of the Braisa. Chutz min achrayis shabai. That again, we rewrite a star, we just leave out the achrayis. Asks the Gemara practically, Heichi kasvinon. How do we write such a document? Amar Rav Nachman, the Kosvi Hachi, you write as follows. Shtare dinan deloy lemigvalei. This document should not be used for collecting meaning you spell out explicitly what the star could be used for. Ella, rather, the only reason we're writing the star, they write into the star is so that the land remains by the buyer. It's just simply a document stating that this person bought this field, but it cannot be used for any collections. Amar Rav Rafram, says Rafram from the text that Rav Nachman just suggested. I'll explain to you, that in any case that achrayis is left out, we assume it's the sefer that messed up. Why? Time of the kasav leik. So Rav Nachman's implying that the reason is the kasav leik. The reason the buyer cannot use the shtar to collect is why? Because they specifically write in you cannot collect with it. But if they did not write such, then Gavi, he would yes be able to collect, even though it doesn't say yes achrayis. So for the fact that he has to explicate that there's no achrayis shows us that in general, if you have a shtar that says nothing, we assume that there's yes achrayis. It doesn't say anything. Achrayis tayis seferu. That is how Rafram learns out of the diuk of the words of Rav Nachman. Says Rav Ashi, no. Rav Ashi Amar Achrayis lav tayis seferu. Umay chutz be'achrayis shabai. Why do they have to write that? It just means the lokatz be'achrayis of Nachman just means we just don't write in it achrayis. We conclude with one final story. Yitzah di'avale zuzi lai gavra. There was a woman who gave money to a certain man lemezon la'ara to buy land for her. Azal zavin la you went and he bought it shlo b'achrayis. Aisle commander of Nachman sheim in front of Rav Nachman and Amar lei and Rav Nachman paskind the takunish d'articha v'loy lavasi. The woman says, I didn't send you to harm me, I sent you to benefit from me. Why did you go and purchase me a field? Sell that field and buy a new one, which again centers around this fundamental din, whether we assume that achrayis that tell you safer or not. We'll pick it up from Shimon Gamliel in the next shir, B'siyata Dishmai.